Right, I'm stuck in the old house again. Things have kind of been too successful this time. And we've got, I don't know if you can see it out there, we've got a skip. Hooray, things are moving on. But I'm stuck, and I brought this book with me and I found my camera. So let's do a let's do a little program on Roy Cross. This is the vintage years of Airfix box art, just because this is the book in my bag. Other people have done programs about this guy and his artwork. Why am I doing one? I'm doing it because I'm stuck here, and because think of this as my little channel's in-store facility, if you see what I mean, for your convenience. So here we are, the greatest box art artist ever. Even as a kid you started to realise that the box art to Airfix models, or any model, was as important really as what the object itself was. This could thrill and entice. And you started to realise that there was one bloke in particular who was doing a really fine job. That you could start to see a consistency. So eventually somebody realised that there needed to be a book on this, and they persuaded Roy Cross to come up with a book on his artwork. It has to be said, in America they'd have done it years earlier, but anyway, here we are. This bloke was a phenomena, and the book is pretty good. There's other books on him, aren't there? But what I hadn't realised is just how phenomenally talented this man was from the very beginning. My earliest colour drawing of an aeroplane, I was probably 12 or so, obviously inspired by the story magazines shown opposite. Roy Cross, 12 years old, that is superb. And it is of its era, because he's right, it's this kind of thing. Now the book is a nice big format. It contains an awful lot of stuff. Not all Roy Crosses, and he does give credit to other people, but here's some of his pieces which he was doing for magazines and even for actual instructions books at a very early age. The man's still alive. I think he's 100. I say he's still alive. I looked the other day and he was still alive. You know, when you're 100 it gets tricky. The very first lines in this book are really telling. He says, "I delight in Keith Shackleton's comment in his enthralling book Wildlife and Wilderness, An Artist's World, that he must come clean with the admission that he never went to art school. Neither did I really, except for later brief spells in prestigious colleges which taught me little of what I wanted to know." That's very important. He'd have had this kind of thing thrashed out of him even then. And there's more. As a member of the Air Training Corps, as a preliminary to service in the Royal Air Force, I decided to send some drawings to its official publication, the Air Training Corps Gazette. The editor, Leonard Taylor, invited me to show him more of my work, and in April 1942 some of my line drawings of current service aircraft were used in the Gazette to illustrate another contributor's article. And more. Jim Stevens was extremely helpful to a green 17-year-old and was instrumental in steering me away from ground crew service in the Royal Air Force. My eyesight was too weak for aircrew, strangely, to a job in Fairey Aviation Limited, where he thought my drawing talents would be put to better use. He and Leonard Taylor also helped me to get special permission to draw some of the RAF aircraft on service aerodromes. On the 15th of April 1942, "He goes to aerodromes to sketch," that's in quotes, appeared as a minor headline in a London newspaper. I was still just 17. So that is a ferociously talented young man. And of course eventually moved on to Airfix, which is a whole other story. Here's one of my favourite illustrations of a fantastic aircraft. It's got a lot of action. Action's always one of the big things with these, but what's really important is the fact that it's almost just two colours, green and beige yellow, which makes the green stand out so much and gives the distance a very, very faint quality which you need. This is a superb use of colour to present the object fantastically. Absolutely remarkable. That's the kind of thing that can really make a difference. This is similar, but I have one problem with it, which meant I didn't buy the model for a long time. They look like they're actually engines blasting the vehicle backwards. The whole motion of this one goes backwards. So that's one of his more complex, shall we say, pictures. But you do that, and you've got a superb, solid, very, very three-dimensional, deep, heavy vehicle there. Marvellously captured, and again, using a pale beige to make the object you're buying stand out. He does mention his, briefly mention his methods and technique, which maybe we'll do on a different program, film, video, whatever. But here's another superb one. And he hasn't overemphasized the shine, which is marvellous. Instead, he's gone for reflected colour, which is very hard to get right. Very easy to neglect. But there we are, flying over the pyramids. Another superb one. Just one bit of advice to bookmakers: never stretch a picture over the spine. Doesn't work. Bookmakers sounds like gambling. Book designers. And here's another. Just two colours really. What's stunning about this one is the depth of this area. You can feel the sun's presence, but a long way off. And you also have the fires blending into what is obviously a fantastic sunset. Well done once again. And again, the aircraft looks phenomenal and dramatic. Talking of two colours, this one goes to extremes. It's almost just shades of one colour, except for the flame. Incredibly cold feel. You feel like you're very, very high up in the sky, and really getting a sense of the remoteness and distance at which all of this action takes place. This one, again, I paused about buying it as a kid because it was so cold. I always imagined the daring and the excitement. Never really thought about all the other practicalities, and this one drove it home. Of course, graphic art is always sneered at by the upper echelons of the fine art world. I did fine art. Not only were we superior beings, but we could beat them at football as well, the graphic artists. But deep down in our hearts, every single one of us wished we could do something like that. I remember reading a thing about a band, Soft Machine, very psychedelic, crazy, second half of the 60s band. And they were saying how they would play gigs and the lads would come up to them afterwards and go, "Brilliant, you were superb," you know, really spacey, cosmic stuff, man. Last week we had Geno Washington playing pop songs and everybody was dancing. And they'd go home and in the van and talk to each other and say, "Oh, I wish we could get everybody up dancing as well." It's a bit like that. One of my favourite aircraft, just because it's such a crazy design, it's so slim. And one of my favourite models, because it really captured this aircraft superbly. One which has a gorgeous bit of artwork to it. I hardly notice the bombs. They're the sort of sickly bit in all this. What I do notice is the gorgeous browns and greens, particularly the brown. Absolutely rich and deep. And phenomenally important on this image, the opposite of reflected colour this time, but that gigantic shine all the way across, which brings the whole thing forward and makes it look so immediate, not just up close, but sort of here it comes. The other aircraft in the background also allows us a bit of depth. Didn't need it, it would have been fine without, but there it is sitting there and just tilting, which gives a bit of drama. Also, he's superbly done. Very hard to get this kind of remote person, the person behind glass, at a distance sorted out. But he's got them just right. Just enough to be able to see them, not too much for them to appear to be out in the open. A nice little sketch for an initial stage. He did cover an awful lot of other topics. He gives credit to other artists for things like nautical topics, but here we have two motorcycles. He also did a lot of civil aviation, which shows he can really turn his hand to other things. He's not just relying on explosions and stuff like that to do the work for him. And this is one of the all-time great pieces of box art. Superb depth, solidity of the vehicle. Very similar angle to some of the ones we've seen before, naturally, because he's got to squeeze it onto a box top and allow for all the written information, the very graphic stuff. But he's managed to get something you don't often see with aircraft pictures. He's managed to get an upright which brings an X shape to the picture, which draws you in again very deeply. He's also managed to get this upright as well. Although it's receding, it's not as near as all this brown smoke. It brings the picture out and puts the aircraft right on the surface of the box. Not just like the one we saw a moment ago, the Hanley Page job, where the aircraft is coming out at you. This is coming off the surface. The aircraft is coming off the surface of the box. Another superb and dramatic piece of work. And it looks, there's so much going on, yet my thumb pressed an evil button. Yeah, there's so much going on, but it's just blobs really, smudges. And I think sometimes that's really helpful to, again, allow the topic in particular to spring out at you. One of my all-time favourite aircraft, the Hurricane. A gorgeous shape, very, very particular, very specific little aircraft. And what's very interesting about this is that this was for the 1/24th model, and I can't help feeling that everybody agreed that the image needed to be gigantic as well. Not the whole thing, but the image of the aircraft. There's plenty going on in the background. We've got the smudgy stuff that we saw earlier. We've got the usual other aircraft to give us depth. We've got a hint at Nash's Battle of Britain painting. But this is bold and dominant and gigantic, right in your face. Not so much leaping out off the page as some of the previous ones, but absolutely bold and in front of you. Having said that, this area does really stand out and does project forward, allowing the tail to recede to give the whole thing a bit of drama. But this image says you're going to get a big kit. And then there's this in the Civil Aviation League, a lot more simple. There's not so much drama on the surface of the vehicle itself. The pilot is a little bit more simple. It's the background that's doing the work for this one. And this is, again, it's saying a lot more than just, oh look, you can buy a little model airplane. It says you are buying into You are becoming a part of the whole of this world. You too are here. And again, brilliantly done. Not too bold, not too strong. It's faded, it's distant, but it's definitely there and it's drawing you in. And look at how the aircraft pulls you along, your eye along to all this. So there's more to these works than simply saying, here's the model you're going to get. And finally, no surprise, probably the greatest piece of box art I've ever seen. This induced me to buy this model more than once, and I wasn't prone to doing that as a kid. It is the magnificent Flying Fortress. I've seen so many illustrations for models of this vehicle, and so many of them are dull. This isn't about war. I know there's an awful lot of bombs, I know there's an awful lot of flak, and there's an awful lot of aircraft shooting each other, but it's about colour, and it's about height, and it's about how these aircraft were getting higher and higher, were capable of flying at extraordinary heights by the end of the war. This is about dark blue and silver, and it's about those jet trails, and well, they're not jet trails, are they? Condensation trails. That's the only thing that really brings you forward. Everything else is about depth, and everything else is about stratospheric qualities. You are up high with that aircraft. You are up high, experiencing danger, not just being shot at, but the danger of simply being up there. Look at those colours. Take in the starkness. Once again, this is almost completely two colours, blue and white. But he pulls out of it something extraordinary. Well done, Roy Cross. I said last, not quite. What have I done with that one? Better dig that out sometime, hadn't I? Thanks for watching, folks. Bit different, as a result of many arduous situations and circumstances, but worth the bother, I think. We'll have a look at some other art at some point and compare and contrast, perhaps. So thanks for watching. See you again soon.